I am Helena Montez, 35, a senior bank executive who moves through glass towers like a shark through still water, calm on the surface, edges sharp enough to cut a deal in half, and I keep my ambitions hidden behind a smile that never wobbles, because in my line of work, a wobble costs millions, and more than that, it costs your soul, and I have learned not to spill a single drop of either. A room where I do my best work smells of cold coffee and the faint sting of soap in the air. The kind of place where people pretend the numbers are moral and not just power dressed up in tidy columns, and I learned to pretend along with them until I could pretend for real and still sleep at night. My secret ambition has always been to redraw the map of who holds influence, to turn a quiet, precise mind into a force that can tilt an entire industry without shouting, without grand gestures, just a few careful shifts in the right places, at the right moments, with the right people in the palm of my hand. The personal event that frames this episode is a wound I carry in the exact place that pride lives. A betrayal that arrived not as a loud confession, but as a whisper in a hallway, and it cut so cleanly I could feel the money in the room tilt toward fear and hunger at the same time. My partner, the one person who should have guarded my heart the way I guarded my ledger, chose the easy path of comfort and familiarity over the stubborn, wild edge of truth. And he did not simply step away from me. He stepped into the circle of the person who had always mocked my ascent, the woman whose friendship used to be a beacon, but turned sour the moment she tasted the taste of my name on a rumor that should have died in an alley of gossip. The kind that travels faster than a market spike and sticks to wheels like rust. He betrayed me with her, and the way it happened felt almost ceremonial, as if their betrayal was a ritual designed to remind me that love and power cannot share the same room without breaking something precious. They thought they could hide the act behind a smile and a lunch, a private joke that I was not invited to, because for them, it began and ended with a shared silence. But I saw it all the same. Every glance, every laugh that sounded too easy, every hand that lingered as if to bless a plan that would erase my position from the board. The first lesson I learned from that moment of quiet ruin was that revenge does not always roar. Sometimes it stands in a corner with a cup of coffee and a sharper view of the board than anyone else. The second lesson was that I would not surrender my own evolution to the heartbreak of another person's choice. So I did what any woman with a count on every breath would do. I cataloged the damage, then I built a counteroffensive that did not shout, but whispered into every meeting I could attend, every call I could make, every door I could slide open with a dignified touch. I did not demand justice in the loud way that people expect. I arranged it the way a mathematician bends a stubborn equation into a solvable form, and soon the shape of the entire financial landscape began to tilt toward my design. It began the morning I stood at a podium that was not mine by title, but mine by aura, and announced a plan that would reorganize the backbone of the institution in a way that required brutal honesty and careful mercy in equal measure. I did not stand there to humiliate anyone, not even the two who had tried to humiliate me in their own private theater, but to force the truth to emerge from all the smoke and mirrors, to reveal the rot without lighting a match that would burn us all. It was not long before the path crossed again with the man who had broken my trust. Now a named employee in a position I could never have imagined placing him in, without it feeling like a careful trap rather than an actual opportunity. He was made to report to me, a paradox that would have dressed any other ego in a velvet chain. But to him, it was a daily reminder of the one moment the world could not predict what I might do with a single decision. He walked into my office with the same air of confidence he had carried into the other room that day, The same easy smile that had once made me believe I could trust him with the most intimate of fragile things. And I could see the lie of that confidence like a fault line lit by fluorescence. I did not scold him, not at first. I let him talk, let him defend the choices he had made. Let him try to minimize the consequences of a betrayal that was not purely a scandal, but a fundamental misalignment of two people who believed themselves brave enough to walk away from the truth when it hurt less than staying. The truth, however, has a way of sneaking back into a room through the smallest crack, and I filled every crack with a method, a plan, a discipline, until the man who had once titled himself ally became the instrument by which I could rewrite how power is earned and how it is retained. The negotiation was not loud. It was an exchange of tacit understandings and precise constraints, a choreography that only a person who had learned to read people like balance sheets could perform without spilling a single emotion into the air. I offered him a role that sounded generous, a position that would be framed as opportunity, but in truth would be a testing ground, a place where his every move would be monitored and his loyalty measured in the small, almost invisible ways a person tries not to reveal their fear. In return, I demanded something simpler than money, yet more valuable, a commitment to the project that would secure the institution's future integrity, and a kind of contrition that would keep him from ever presuming he could walk away from the consequences of his past actions again. He learned quickly that forgiveness is not a gift you give to someone who hurt you, but a tool you use to build a better future. And so he walked the line I laid out for him with careful steps and a voice that never trembled. The moment he touched the shade of my authority, I felt the old ache of betrayal begin to recede, replaced by the cold, exacting thrill of possession. The sense that I had reclaimed what was mine, not by birth, but by the undeniable truth that I could bend the frame around him until the pattern matched the shape of my own design. The first real test came when a major audit uncovered a swath of misdirection that could have toppled 100 small empires, and I watched him perform under pressure in a way that surprised me, because I had never given him much reason to surprise me at all. He stood not as a savior, but as a witness in a theater, where I was the director, guiding the scene with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a monk. He did not crack. He did not beg for mercy. He simply did the work, a quiet performance that spoke louder than any apology I could have forced from him. When the board members looked to him for a dramatic denunciation or a grand confession, he offered only the truth that mattered. The numbers would balance, the risk would be contained, and the people who trusted us would not lose what they could not afford to lose. In that moment, I felt the cold edge of justice kiss my skin, a kiss that tasted of victory and something more complicated, something like relief mixed with the sour knowledge that revenge, even when it is cold as steel, does not erase the ache of what was done, nor does it erase the memory of who betrayed you and how. Yet there was a strange mercy in the air, a sense that by elevating him into a person who could stand in the light of accountability, I had offered him something beyond punishment, a chance to reform his own appetite for risk, to understand that power without responsibility burns the hands that must hold it. The days that followed were quieter. The kind of quiet that has weight, because it is not the absence of noise, but the presence of a new, deliberate rhythm. I would walk the trading floors and feel the floorboards hum under my feet with the soft, almost respectful fear that accompanies a true transition, and people would look at me with a blend of admiration and caution, as if they knew a storm was moving but could not tell where it would strike next. My former lover, if you could still call him that after all that had happened, no longer carried the same warmth in his eyes. His gaze held a wary respect. A realization that I could not be pushed aside by anger